Hello and welcome to ChinaSolved's Casual Friday video. Today we're looking at Chinese negotiating styles, the avoider. For ChinaSolved, I'm Andrew Hubert. And we're continuing our conversation about the 5 types or categories of negotiator. As you'll no doubt recall, there are 5 styles or types of negotiators: competitive, compromising, accommodating, avoiding, and collaborating. And today we'll be talking about the avoiding type of negotiator, or the avoiders. And here you can see it on the shell matrix. This type of negotiator is at the lower left corner. He cares very little about his benefit, and he cares very little about your benefit from this particular negotiation. Who are the avoiders? Avoiders are negotiators who would rather not be involved in a negotiation. They win by not playing. They would rather not be engaged. Think about the uncaring bureaucrat. Think about the reluctant buyer who would rather not spend the money and would rather put off and procrastinate. Think about yourself when you get called up in the evening with an unsolicited call by a telemarketer who wants you to switch long-distance services. You don't want to negotiate. You don't want to hear what he has to say. And that's what an avoider is. The avoider is more common in Chinese business negotiation than in the US, but it's a universal type. We run into them all over. Avoidance can actually be a very powerful technique, and I want to give a warning to my American compatriots that we tend to equate passivity and avoidance with weakness, with weak negotiating positions, and it's just not so. This is dangerous and counterproductive. Now, avoiding behavior is also closely tied to risk. And this is another big difference between the way American negotiators behave and the way Chinese negotiators behave. When American negotiators are facing an unknown situation or heightened risk or a changing environment, our fallback option, our default, is to power through, stay the course, keep moving in the same direction. In China, that's not the way they behave when they're faced with uncertainty or perception of heightened risk. When faced with risk and an unknown environment, the Chinese negotiator will tend to stop and wait for more information, wait for the situation to clarify. And he's going to withdraw. Even if he's already made an offer, or if he's already accepted an offer, if the environment shifts, he's going to stop and pull back. In general, avoiders require 2 sets of negotiation. First, you must negotiate to get them engaged in the process. You've got to negotiate to get them to negotiate. Then you must negotiate for the deal terms you want. So you have to be careful that you are not making more concessions than you think you are. Avoidance tactics are closely linked to time manipulation and time tactics. And Chinese negotiators are much more adept at using time as a negotiating variable than are Americans. So Americans have to be very careful to not get impatient and to rush into bad decisions or unnecessary concessions. So now let's take a look at how avoidance behavior translates into negotiating tactics and strategy. Tactic 1 is just following orders. And here avoidance takes the form of evading responsibility. They don't have the power to make concessions or compromises, so if there's going to be a deal, if there's going to be an agreement, you're the one that has to make the concession. They don't have the power to change, and you do. Therefore, the onus is on you to make the compromise and to give in. Tactic 2 is very common in China, and this is a real Chinese tactic, the hidden power. And now boss is unavailable, the real power, the real decision maker. He's too busy, he's traveling, maybe he doesn't speak English, but he told your Chinese counterparty, he told the Chinese side to tell you no. But you can't speak to him directly, so you can't attempt to change his mind or negotiate with him or get him to compromise. 3 is another typically Chinese behavior or Chinese tactic, and this has to do with special connections, where he has a special guanxi connection with a decision maker, with a bureaucrat, a regulator, or a distributor, or someone in power. He has a special connection, and that if it weren't for him, you wouldn't even be negotiating with the other person. Of course, it's out of the question that you'll meet him directly. So you have to negotiate through your counterparty. Tactic 4, you're the boss. And here we are revisiting the last negotiating type we discussed, which was the accommodative or yielding negotiator. Well, now he's back, but he's using his accommodation to avoid responsibility and avoid making a decision. So you have to take the responsibility, and since it's your decision, the onus is on you to make the concessions. This usually involves you providing the plans, technologies, and assets that will be necessary to make this plan happen. Tactic 5 is the big stall. Here, we've hit an impasse. Progress stops. And this is most common when you are in China and you've got a limited time frame. You're due back in the U.S. or you're due back in the home office with a signed contract. And he reaches a point where there's nothing more he can do. You have to make the unilateral concession to get the deal back on track. He's willing to talk. He's willing to meet with you over and over in an endless series of meetings, but no more progress is being made. So now let's see how these different avoiding tactics combine into a comprehensive strategy. And let's call this one hurry up and wait. And in this strategy, it's most common when you are flying to China, meeting with a counterparty for the first time. It's a new partner, or it's a new distributor or supplier. And what you'll find is that your negotiation is going extremely well, better than you could have hoped, better than you expected. And not only are you getting along very well on a personal level and seeing eye to eye on business, but your goals align, and before you know it, the scope of the deal is expanding. And you're talking about doing a bigger, more important deal together. And everything is going very, very quickly, and you are sending home, back to the home office, very optimistic reports, and expectations are getting higher and higher. The final meeting, where you expect to just wrap everything up, is scheduled just before you're due to leave. And then suddenly some sort of snag develops. Turns out they violated a rule, or that one little point that they kept pushing off to the very end becomes a deal-breaking impasse. And the terms of the deal change against your side. And time is running out, and you have to catch a plane. Now you're faced with a difficult choice. You go home with no deal, or you go home with a deal that is somewhat less attractive than the one you had thought that you were going home with. For ChinaSolved, this has been Andrew Hubert. Thanks very much. I look forward to speaking to you again soon.